Today we are going to be talking about a few things that prevent you from finding true rest in Jesus. Some are quite obvious, while others are inconspicuous. Hi, Dovann here, and welcome to another episode of Week at a Glance, where we dive into a thoughtful summary of this week's Bible study guide. Welcome to another episode in our series on Rest in Christ. I don't know if you know what aspen trees are, but aspen trees are native to cold regions with cool summers. What makes these trees interesting is that they have one of the largest root systems in the plant world. The roots spread underground and form a colony that can spread relatively quickly, covering large areas. Individual aspen trees can live up to 150 years. Woo, that's quite long, right? But the larger organism below the ground, the roots, can live for thousands of years. And just like an aspen tree and its larger underground root system, the underground system called sin keeps you and me from finding true rest in Jesus. The title of this episode is The Roots of Restlessness. Now, here are the important points to remember for today's episode. Our first point is selfishness, self-oriented root. Selfishness is like the root system of the aspen trees. It is a part of a huge underground system called sin. It seems to be the mother or the father of all sins because it is common to each of us and keeps us away from loving God and others as we are called to do as believers. Are you suffering from selfishness? Now, if you don't know if you are, if you're not, then here are a few of the symptoms. Maybe you can check yourself. When you are more concerned with your own interests over God's, and when you are having difficulty submitting to God's will, when you don't rejoice when others are esteemed or praised, and when you are more concerned with your wants than the needs of others. Now let's go to Luke chapter 12. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus identifies selfishness as the underlying problem of the conflict between two brothers. And he goes on to teach them a lesson through the parable of the rich fool. Here, Jesus points out that true peace and joy comes from giving and not grasping. We are truly happy when we make others happy, not when we try to manipulate them to make ourselves happy. Here is a quick action step for you. Take a few minutes and write down the examples of selfishness in your life and submit them to God in prayer. Tell God to help you with the selfishness that you are struggling with and to reveal areas in your life where unidentified selfishness still reigns. Now let's move on to our next point. Our second point is ambition, fame-oriented root. Being ambitious in and of itself is not wrong. It's what we esteem or honor that can be a problem. If your ambition is defined by the standards of the world, an intense desire to achieve honor, wealth, or fame, then it is a problem. Because you will always strive to have the biggest paycheck, to be better than others, your neighbors, and to achieve the latest gadgets and so many other things that you want to have. There's just no end to it. On the other hand, the Bible teaches that we should be ambitious, yet the objective is to be accepted by Christ and not by the world. Ambition was one of the roots of the restlessness of Jesus' disciples. While Jesus and his disciples were at Capernaum, his disciples had a heated discussion about who among them would be the greatest in the kingdom of Jesus, according to Luke chapter 9. And a year later, as Jesus was having his Last Supper with them, the issue of who is the greatest was once again the heated topic of debate among the disciples. Here is another action step for you. Make a list of your ambitions and ask yourself, do these ambitions please God or man? Now let's move on to our third point. Our final point is hypocrisy, display-oriented root. The accounts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John portrayed Jesus as a friend to sinners. He offered forgiveness, grace to adulterers, tax collectors, prostitutes, and even murderers. But you know what? He demonstrated little tolerance for hypocrites. What and who is a hypocrite? A hypocrite is someone who claims to believe something but acts in contrary to that belief and looks down on others when he himself is flawed. And to Jesus, the religious rulers of his day were guilty of hypocrisy. Among the many statements about hypocrisy, among the many statements of Jesus about hypocrisy, that passage in Matthew 23 requires our attention to help us examine ourselves. Jesus says that we are hypocrites if we don't do what we say. If we make religion harder for others without applying the same standards to ourselves. And third, we are hypocrites when we want others to praise our religious piety, just like the religious rulers of his day. And fourth, when we require honor and recognition that belongs only to God. Here is your last action step. Go through the 4 main characteristics of a hypocrite mentioned by Jesus and reflect on your life. Now, let's talk about uprooting the roots of restlessness. Restlessness is the last thing that we want in our life. I'm pretty sure that you and majority of the people in the world want to live a peaceful, happy, and abundant life. We have identified a few of the roots of restlessness, right? These roots, if not dealt with, will produce shoots and grow upward and produce evil fruits. So how do we uproot them from our lives? Here are a few ways. First, remember that true peace comes from accepting and following Jesus, according to Matthew chapter 10. Second, doing God's will should be your topmost priority. And third, be humble and seek the good of others, according to Philippians chapter 2. Focus on the life of Jesus, who selflessly clothed and covered his divinity with humanity and gave up the grandeur of heaven to fulfill God's will with total submission and humility for your salvation. So when the roots of restlessness, selfishness, ambition, hypocrisy start to pollute and choke your life, remember the principles of Jesus' kingdom. Giving rather than grasping, self-sacrifice rather than self-promotion, and focus on others rather than on self. This is the Christian revolution. Here is the complete reversal of the world standards. I hope you enjoyed this summary today. In summary, here are the different points that we talked about in today's episode. Point number 1, selfishness, self-oriented root. Point number 2, ambition, fame-oriented root. And point number 3, hypocrisy, display-oriented root. And if you find this episode helpful, then be sure to give this video a like and share it with your friend. Spread the word and change lives one message at a time. And if you want to watch more summaries like this, then be sure to click on this video right here. This is again Dovann for Week at a Glance. I'll see you in the next video.